Cafe. Anyway, FF 2424.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Oh, one. Oh, my. It's Mike's Daily Podcast. I had a fun time yesterday. Hey, I'm going to sing the song, and I hope you don't mind. I hope it's not wrong of me to sing for you, because it's my podcast, and it's something I do from time to time. I last a while doing this podcast thing, because I've done 2,401. That's a lot. That's more than some. That's a whole bunch. That's a whole bun. And it's Mike, and I was at a fun little get-together yesterday. Mike's Daily Podcast. In the town of Lafayette, celebrating St. Patrick's Day. And there were some folks who had been on the podcast before. Daily and at one point, podcast. I sat in front of a very large speaker system, and I was played my podcast back to me over a large speaker system. It was almost as if I was sitting in an arena and hearing the podcast playing over the speakers in the arena. Wow. I gotta tighten up. There's, if you're a creator of anything and you're hearing back your work or seeing your work or reading your work or what have you, it's interesting because you criticize yourself. You're like, I gotta do this different. I gotta do that different. At any rate, I have not done a podcast the past 2 days. And why is that? Because I have not been so good. I have had a lot of things going wrong in my life lately. External things that I had no control over. One is I lost my mom last month. And then this past week, one of the cats that we were watching vanished. And we don't think the best. We think it's the worst. We're assuming the worst, and I don't know what happened exactly to this cat, but we're putting out flyers. We're going on Nextdoor, where there's a bunch of interesting people on Nextdoor, as you know, if you've ever been on there, nextdoor.com. Wow.
And here's today's podcast picture.
And it's just really hard, because this cat was awesome. We saved him. We saved him from having no one. And we got him chipped. We fed him every day. He trusted us so much that he would actually sleep on the bed at night. And he's just a great cat. Very kind, cuddly, affectionate cat. And the late great Basil the Boxer probably would have chased him out of the house. But with outdoor cats, and this cat started out as a feral cat, so to make him an indoor cat was like impossible, or would have taken a lot of work. We tried a couple times that he just wanted to go out, and well, that unfortunately is part of the plan with outdoor cats, especially in California, when you got coyotes and all kinds of manner of predators out there. And then somebody wrote back to us on Nextdoor saying, well, maybe your cat is trapped. Maybe he's trapped somewhere, somebody else's property. And that seems pretty unlikely. But we were checking around the neighborhood. So far, not hearing anything. At any rate, not a very fun year so far, 2022. And just hope it gets better. Because this is, I can't stand that. It's such a kind, sweet cat. So much so, like, there are probably podcasts that I've done that you can find where maybe I don't say nice things about cats. This cat changed my mind. He was a great cat, and it's just sad that he's gone. And I've been thinking about him a lot today, even though the last podcast I did, I was mentioning it. And that was I'm looking at a picture right now of him. I did just last week. I think this was on Tuesday. I picked him up, and my lovely lady friend took a picture. And I picked him up and held him up in the air, kind of like a Lion King type thing. From the day we arrive on the planet. And, yeah, now he's gone, so... Not to be all bummed out on the beginning of the podcast, But that's what the situation is with me this week, and why I've not been able to bring you a podcast like I usually do. I'm going to pick a picture from something that happened yesterday. It was a full day. I also went to Lake Merritt and walked around the lake, probably because all this stuff has happened and I need to think and walk around the lake. And that reminded me a lot of the late great Basil the boxer, because we walked around Lake Merritt a couple times. And towards the end of his life, when his back legs were starting to fail and his degenerative nervous system nerve disease was happening, he was still able to walk with his front legs. And it seemed at Lake Merritt and the parks around there, he felt comfortable. He could walk on the grass, because walking on cement and asphalt was like hard on his paws. So we would do the grass and he liked that. But I walked around there. We walked around there several times when he was around, when he was alive. But I haven't actually walked around the lake since he passed. So I did that yesterday. And I have to tell you, give this quick little report. It's not looking so good. Oakland is, I don't know if it's snapping back from all the protests in 2020. I mean, it's here, 2 years now almost since the protests. And there's still a lot of damage done. Still a lot of work, a lot of boarded up windows. And it's depressing. And a lot of tents around the lake. And it's, a lot of waste and junk. And it's just, what's that word? Detritus. It's all building up, and it's not looking like the park it used to be. That's kind of sad. I'm on a real negative bent today, aren't I? But there's some beautiful pictures, and the picture is not of the detritus. It's of some good stuff, of some beauty around the lake that cannot be taken away. There's a certain beauty of Lake Merritt that no matter what's going on culturally, it's still going to be a great looking landmark in Oakland. So I'll pick a picture and post it at MikesDailyPodcast.com. Check it out, yes. And go to the website, because you know why? I pay money for it. And you get to hear this podcast for free. You get to listen for free. You get to enjoy the podcast for free. I know it's an enjoying podcast, and I try to bring you interesting stuff that helps you in your life. All I ask is you check out the podcast website, MikesDailyPodcast.com. As we go outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, 10, the last place on earth. Hey, do you know what the number one movie is? The Batman. I heard somebody say it's a little long. Well, I have not seen it yet. The movie I did see was on Netflix, that new Ryan Reynolds one, not the one where he's a video game guy, but the which was basically Matrix, Tron, Truman Show all mixed together, and then a lot of contemporary video gamers thrown in. But I watched this, what is this one? The Adam Project. It's sort of a time travel thing. And I don't know. I mean, there was a scene with Zoe Saldana that really moved me, and I'm not an actor, but I really appreciate her acting. And just the whole acting, sci-fi acting in general, to really, I mean, you're dealing with fantastical things, and to really sell it, that's impressive. So Zoe and Ryan Reynolds to some extent, and then Mark Ruffalo's in it, and he's a great actor too. So everybody's, and Catherine Keener is in it. And then Catherine Keener, so she's now, I don't know how old she is, but she also, they've got like a computer generized youngerized version of herself that she's talking to. That's kind of bizarre. We were watching that last night. I'm sure a lot of people are catching it. I think it was number one on Netflix recently. So, what is going on in this world where we're just dealing with all kinds of stuff and the news isn't good. And how do you stay positive in a world like this? Here's a thought. Always be grateful. It's impossible to feel depressed in life if you have so many things to be grateful for. Now, I was hanging out with this guy yesterday who's been on the podcast before. He has a very lovely house. And we're walking around the house and he's kind of knocking down some things about his house. I'm like, dude, you got a beautiful house. This is amazing. You could be in heaven and you're still pointing out things that are negative. Well, if you're in heaven, you're like, dang it, I'm dead. But no, there's so many great things to be grateful of. But yeah, I guess we all have that tendency in ourselves to focus on the negative. But no matter how inferior things may turn out, you must realize that we still have things in our lives what most people on Earth don't have. The research found that your brain always focuses on the negative elements of life, like tragedies, failures, worries. That's why we need to focus more on good things. To do so, you should make a gratitude list. Have an attitude of gratitude. And read them whenever you get a chance. It will attract more blessing and you will feel more... you'll feel better. More better? That's bad grammar. But yeah. The guy on the show Parks and Rec. The one that... I can't think of his name, but he's dealing with the Aubrey Plaza character, and she always annoys him. And so whenever she talks to him, he like names off 3 things that he really likes, and they're just the 3 random things. Jimmy Stewart, and yes. So focus on the positive. This from ThriveGlobal.com. ThriveGlobal.com. Make an effort to find a positive side in everything. When you're waiting for your friend and he or she is late, don't get angry. Rather, make it an opportunity to develop your patience level. I was watching on Netflix that show Queer Eye, and there was a interesting... that show fascinates me. First off, they're very positive. The Fab Five, very positive people, and they come into people's lives, and the most negative thing could have happened, and they're just jumping up and down and making them positive. By the end of the show, everything's going great despite all the problems, and they actually tackled some topics that in the so you got the LGBTQ, I think this is the T, the trans community, and I'm not immersed in it, so here we go. Mike's going to try and talk about it. It was someone who went from became more male, let's put it that way. Had the hormone therapy and the surgery done. And this person went through a lot. And the surgery looked utterly wow. I don't see how I would ever do that. But then again, this person went through their whole life thinking that they were a different gender and wanting to be a different gender and start a different life. But wow. So they tackle that. And actually, so it's 5 gay men, one that's more non-binary, and one of the men, Tan, who is the spokesperson, I believe, for Alaskan Airlines now. Tan said something to the effect to this person who went from being a woman to a man, saying, I don't know, I couldn't possibly do the surgery that you've done. That seemed extreme. But then they talked it out, and it was very interesting. Gosh, it all comes down to this world and trying to understand everything going on in it, and trying to understand the stuff that happens to you in life, and that it happens to other people in life, And, being grateful for what you have. I guess I don't know how to sum it up. But here's the thing in your life, if things are falling apart, you're losing the ones that you love in some way, it's good to try and think of things like, treasuring your experience more than your possessions. Thomas Gilovich, he's a psychologist at Cornell University. It's healthy for our brain to treasure a memorable and pleasant experience rather than the material things. Comparing possessions and look at better objects after purchase can be demoralizing and ruin the initial pleasure of having the possession. By treasuring experiences, when you treasure experiences, it does not affect the initial pleasure. Rather, they provide long-lasting happiness experiences. Also, to help you with being more positive, exercise more. University of Toronto found in research that physical activity helps to fight depression. Research shows exercising daily releases good mood endorphins, which makes your mood better. Exercise has both physical and mental benefits. It can keep you in better shape and boost your self-esteem. And trying to be in a positive environment. Have positive people around you who will help you stay positive in negative situations. Circle yourself with people who will support you and lift you rather than drag you down and walk up to you and just bark at you. Just bark. Just be negative. Just be a dark cloud. And whenever they start a sentence with, avoid those people as best you can. Mike, blah, 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 blah. You can also spend time reading positive books, watching motivating movies, or listening to good music. I hope we've gone into a more positive area with this podcast today. I might have started it a bit, but hopefully it's more positive towards the end. Help others. Volunteering or doing charity can boost your spiritual health, give you internal peace. Buying a big house and cars will not increase your overall happiness in the long run. Contributing to the betterment of the people who will also make you realize how much fortunate you are than others. Research found that when we dedicate a little time or money in helping others, this has a significant effect on our happiness. This is because our total focus will be on how you can give or be of service to others and paying less attention to negative people and things around you. This article also suggests going outside, meditating, getting enough sleep, expressing your feelings, reducing your worries, accepting and finding solutions. This is from Angela, who writes for alifestyle.com, and this is in thriveglobal.com. Some ideas for you today. Outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley. 10. Look who's here. Hello, Michael Matthews, Madame Rootabega, and I love the J. Giles Band. Oh, the J. Giles Band. Peter Wolf sang lead in that band. I think I once sat next to him at a restaurant in Nashville called Nosh Vegas. And we were the only ones, me and my then wife, and I think it was Peter Wolf and his friend. We were like sitting in a booth next to each other. And he was right behind me, and I'm hearing his voice. And I'm like, why does he sound familiar? And my blood ran cold and my memory had just been sold because Peter Wolf was sitting behind me. And then I looked and I go, I think that is Peter Wolf. And then I found out later Peter Wolf had been in Nashville performing at a concert with Kid Rock. So quite possibly it was him, but I did not speak to him. But the J. Giles Band had that song Centerfold, right? Angel is a centerfold. Well, the song is fun and upbeat, but if you really think about it, it's not really appropriate, is it? So you got a high school student that's in Playboy, ? Is that what that song is saying? In high school, you're generally under 18? ? Yes. Why that song hasn't been woped yet, I don't know, but... And in the video, don't even... As soon as you watch the video, you're like, yeah, And you can be a 53-year-old male, white male, and still go, yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. I see a Gen Z Mike Matthews that would be cringing like crazy watching that. But yes, that song, does that song have a saxophone in it? No, but I was discussing at this party I was at yesterday about the importance of the saxophone in 80s music. Of course, notably, just sprung to my head, probably yours, Wham! Careless Whisper, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But the saxophone was big, and then we were listening to that song by Whitney Houston from the Bodyguard soundtrack, the cover of the Dolly Parton song, I'll Always Love You, Dolly Parton telling the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I do not want to be inducted, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame saying, tough. You did contribute, whether you know it or not, to rock, because you're Dolly freaking Parton, and she wrote so many songs, and country has had an influence on rock, funk has had an influence on rock, a lot of very truly American music has influenced rock. So why not induct her into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I believe Johnny Cash is in it, isn't he? Well, there are other people that you would consider, that's borderline country, that are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we got to put Dolly in. Dolly wrote I Will Always Love You, one of the biggest songs of all time. And it got redone by Whitney Houston. David Foster produced it. David Foster producing all those big Chicago hits in the 80s. And then was, I think he discovered Michael Bublé or helped make him popular, Celine Dion. A lot of your soft hits, soft music, soft adult contemporary music came from David Foster. But yeah, so there's a big saxophone solo in that song, I'll Always Love You. And then you got the sax solos in basically every Hall & Oates song. In Excess, the band from Australia, got some big saxophone solos in it, in their music. Then Bruce Springsteen, Clarence Clemens. Clarence even had a hit with Jackson Browne, with Daryl Hannah in the video. All My Life, You're a Friend of Mine, where he's playing the sax. Oh, Billy Joel had some saxophone solos. I forget who played that in his... someone from his band. I forget his name. Anywho, that's all we were talking about. Why was the saxophone so big in the 80s and 90s, particularly the early 90s, but and the mid to late 80s, but lots of saxophone solos. Partially, and even if you take that Roxette song, Listen to Your Heart, there was the version on the album that was about 6 minutes long. They made a shorter version, about 4 minutes long, and in that they took out the guitar solo in the break and replaced it with a saxophone solo, which didn't even really sound like a real saxophone. It sounded like somebody doing a synthesized sax. But that was something big. And then the last saxophone solo I could think of, yes, and Kenny G contributed to all of that too, Dave Koz. You had Katy Perry do that song TGI Friday, or Last Friday Night is what it was, and in it there was a Kenny G performing in that song. But yeah, saxophone is not quite as big as it was. Definitely when you hear a saxophone, you think of 80s and 90s. It had that connection. And what do you think of saxophones? Do you like saxophones, Madame Rootabega? Yes. Do you like clarinet? Yes. Do you like the recorder? No. Yeah, the recorder, the little flute. Toot, 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 that we learned in school. Look who else is here as well. Right now. Say something, for crying out loud.
Hello there, Mike. This is Valentino, the parking attendant.
And this is Bison Bentley.
Mike, we've never watched that Netflix Queer Eye show, The.
Yeah, we don't understand. Do you know that? It's a show where they do like a makeover. Like that show Extreme Makeover with Ty, what's his face? And they'd redo a house. It's kind of like that.
I don't understand, The.
Yeah, sports. Do you know that? Oh, they watch a lot of sports. Disgruntled fiddle player. I mean, Valentino and Bison Bentley. Disgruntled fiddle player was on the last show. Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
Yeah, okay. Do you know that? All right, thank you. We're outside, so that means we're really close to the parking lot. And Valentino's the parking attendant. Bison Bentley is I don't know what, but helps him out. And so we're out here, and we're really close to our cars or our electronic vehicles. Gosh, there's so many Teslas. Yesterday, between Oakland and Lafayette, I saw so many Teslas. And then, in California, we're being charged to the max for our gas because our government in California wants us to get off of gas. So we'll put all these fees and charge the Californians that are too poor to buy an electric vehicle. We'll charge them, and, you know, oh, shame on you for using fossil fuels and destroying the environment. Oh, California. But you can tell me what you think about any of this. 336MM Daily, 3 + 3 = 6. MM as in Mike Matthews, Daily as in what this podcast is, or tries to be, or will try to continue to be again. Please let me know what you think of stuff. And other ways to reach me, it's A-Frame.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MikesDailyPodcast.com. Email Mike now at MikesDailyPodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!